Tell me again why you didn't come with us.
I was ill like a science lesson. I wanted to rock that show, but I was at home with a sinus infection.
Aw.
No, I don't even remember, man. The thing is, I needed to be there. Now I need to pick your brain, see what I missed out on.
It's different.
No grenades. Yeah. I don't know, man. That's like telling like a Forza fan there's like no wheels or something.
The grenades are often so effective that you know, they were one of the ways that people were winning games. We want much more sharp lines between classes. We want those experiences between classes to be much more divergent. One of the secondary reasons were they were the largest source of spam in the game. We don't like spam for a variety of reasons. We don't think it's not terribly skill-based, and it's also very confusing to new players usually in that they die and they're not really sure exactly what killed them. So that's why we removed it. And of course, one of the things we have to do as designers is to make sure that we haven't hurt our game.
Grenades are huge. I mean, they were like the scourge of the game. They were its Achilles heel, but they were also one of the things that differentiated gameplay in that more than anything. And it was all about the secondary grenades. You know, the classic you've heard me ramble about all the time. Can I do concussion jumps? Can I conk jump?
I think there was always a fear that it was going to end up being kind of like the same game as TFC, but you know, like
Right.
with new graphics.
Yeah, so I guess I would have been expecting like maybe like new, rebalanced, and like even crazier secondaries.
And one of the main things we felt that removing grenades did was remove some decisions from the players. And so we wanted to give you equivalently interesting ones in Team Fortress 2. One of the main ways we did that was to take hold of the secondary weapons that every class has that in TFC were kind of afterthoughts and solve some specific problem that the primary weapon doesn't solve. So for example, whether you're a soldier who's dealing with someone at distance dodging at rockets really easily, or a pirate who's such an incredibly short-range class with the flamethrower and can't hit anyone at some distance, you know, switching to his shotgun because he needs to use that. So we've tried to really make those more interesting decisions to make up for that loss of grenades.
The secondary weapons in this game, not only just like shotguns and that sort of thing, but also the melee weapons, you can actually like do damage with them. So even as a class like a medic, you know, where you are definitely playing like a support role, if you get in a close quarters combat with someone else, you usually can take them down. The things you are given from the get-go, no matter what class you're playing, are just more useful. And before I was wondering how it was going to feel on consoles, whether or not you'd even be able to play a game like Team Fortress.
Do they take those out for the console? You know, if you're playing competitively as a soldier, you might come in, you have a grenade charged, you do a rocket jump that does splash damage against an opponent. You know, confuse him. While you're in the air, you drop your grenade, which is then primed. It explodes on his head, and then you fire a second rocket on his head. That sort of maneuver seemed like really unlikely, you know, on this. So I just was wondering, because that's the last thing I want to hear is that they made these changes on the PC version because they're making one game for all three platforms.
After playing Team Fortress 2, I could definitely see playing that on a 360 controller and having no problem with it. So
We think of roles first and experiences first, and we get to sort of class embodiments of that later. For example, the scout who used to have a role of being the sort of guy who ran away from combat a lot and sort of avoided combat. We didn't feel that was terribly successful, and we were toying with this idea of someone whose combat experience was all about movement as opposed to sort of aim. So it's not so much about how well you aim, it's about how well you anticipate other people's aim and avoid it. Multiplayer is a constant battle of balancing, you know, especially when you have 9 different classes and they all have different capabilities, and they're very analog. You know, how much should you reward a great sentry gun placement on the engineer's part versus, you know, really good aim on the soldier's part. I think one of the biggest problems is always trying to make sure classes are really distinct, which is something we I think we're a lot happier with in Team Fortress 2 than we were in, say, older versions of Team Fortress. where there were sort of classes which blurred over each other a little too much, and so a really skilled player playing this class was better than a beginner guy at this class, or even an average guy at this class, even though this class is supposed to be the guy that's good at that thing or something. And so trying to solve those kinds of problems were the really tricky ones, I think.
This is a game I played in a clan, like extensively, know it so well. I mean, clearly, your guys' perspective is just as valuable as mine, if not more, to a large segment of our audience. I mean, just like, what's your general impression?
I play first-person shooters all the time, but like only single player.
Yeah.
It's because I feel like I'm just like whenever I go into a multiplayer situation, I'm just like totally floored. Right. So like I was picking up the support role right from the beginning, like the medic, and it's probably analogous to like the same reason I play like a priest in World of Warcraft, because I kind of like being the sideline guy who's helping everyone else, at least while I kind of figure out what's going on.
We've always been unhappy with medics in our FPSs in the past. Like building a good support class that people want to play is a real challenge, where you can feel valuable, but at the same time, you shouldn't have to give up some part of your fun because you know that it would be valuable for the team. You should play a medic because it's more fun to play a medic than some other class.
It sounds like this is the biggest class change out of all of them.
No ability to infect,
Can infect the other
and no
players.
concussion jumping. Medic was like easily one of the best offensive classes for that mobility. So like the speed with which he could get in and out of the opponent's base. But so now he's largely a support role in the way that it would make sense for a medic to be.
We were expecting and deliberately designed, a set of skills into the medics so that there would be good and bad medics, because you need, part of playing a class is realizing that there's a skill curve and that it gets deeper the more you play. You recognize more things you can do that are of use. But something we weren't expecting was that there was such a significant skill to being a good medic target. And so within the company, with over all the sort of months of playtesting we've done, there's been these certain people who have shown up that all the medics really like them because they really know how to work well with a medic. They know how to sort of keep one eye on their medic and keep him alive. When they're going through around corners, they try and keep a wide berth so the medic can keep their beam on them the whole way, and all these kinds of little subtle movement things about keeping your medic alive.
I spend most of my time like crouched behind a rock when there's a heavy, turn shit up over there, and just with my linked heal gun healing him. And then eventually, as you heal, this bar fills up, and then you're both invincible, so you can start making a push across the field.
How do you get like 10 guys to act like a team? And they've never met each other. Some subset of them have voice communication, maybe even none of them, and they're expected to somehow like work together in a great coordinated thing. And of course, as we find through years of experience on DOD and CS and TF2, is that, hey, this is really freaking hard. We said, all right, well, can we deliver a really, really good experience between two guys? Can we make two people feel like they're incredibly connected? That like, if they could talk to just each other and they were all working together, or the pair of them were just working together, could we deliver on a really good experience there, as opposed to delivering, an okay team experience to everyone? And so that's sort of like what started the medic sort of mechanic. If you play a game of Counter-Strike, there's these euphoric moments where you happen to kill 3 or 4 guys in a row and you're on top of the world, and then there's these times when the enemy killed 3 or 4 of you in a row and so on. And one of the things we were unhappy about with Team Fortress Classic was it tended to be a very steady experience. The medic's invulnerability is one of those solutions that came out of that kind of thinking.
In our single player games, we found that pacing is really important, like giving people moments of rest and building up to crescendo and having these really, really tense moments that you overcome, and you have this great feeling of satisfaction. And it's basically the multiplayer kind of way of handling that kind of same scenario as far as building some pacing into the game.
The control point system sort of sets up what's the basic sort of goals for each team, which is someone's attacking and someone's defending. So it sets up that offense and defense thing. The other thing it does is it allows us to sort of use the entire area of a map. And so one of the problems we had with Capture the Flag, for example, is where if you've got this big map and you've got a flag at each end, then the really important parts of the map are the endpoints. And capture points let us distribute sort of points of interest in multiple areas. At any point you can look down at your HUD and you get a pretty good sense of where the two teams are at.
I have an open mind. I'm willing to just be knocked, bowled over by it. And I'm just kind of saying that as, like I said, you know, the guy that's used to certain things, but I want something different too. Say the next iteration of Street Fighter comes out, or Soul Calibur or something, and you find out that they've taken your character and they've like changed like not only like the inputs for some moves, but they've removed some of the moves, but they've added new ones, and it's just like at first it's just you're really resisting. I want to see Valve succeed and show console gamers why they're so cool and PC, but I don't want to see them like turn their back on us.
I think the fear was that the game was going to be the same game, and what we've come to learn is that it's not. It's highly different than it was before, and so like even players who played a ton back in the day are gonna have to relearn how to play. The value pack is definitely worth the money. So hopefully console gamers will finally get a real taste of the true Valve experience.